Staying in the States now, there's a brand new issue come to light that has gone absolutely viral. People are legitimately asking, is this an election decider? You may or may not be aware of Peanut the squirrel. He is a viral sensation, and just so you're a little bit familiar with him before I tell you this sad tale of massive government overreach, here he is during the happy days with his owner, Mark Longo. Don't get attached. What I'm about to tell you is devastating. So he's a New York squirrel, right? And he was recently seized by the Department of Environmental Conservation to test him and his friend Raccoon, who also lived with Mark Longo, and they were euthanized. The state came to this guy's house, raided it, took his animals and killed them. They said it was because they were there to test them for rabies. Now, here is owner Mark Longo explaining the drastic extent they went to in order to get their hands on his pet animals that he'd lived with for over 7 years.
It not only tears my family apart, but Peanut was the cornerstone of our nonprofit animal rescue. And 10 to 12 DEC officers raided my house as if I was a drug dealer. I was sat outside my house for 5 hours. I had to get a police escort to my bathroom. I wasn't even allowed to feed my rescue horses breakfast or lunch. I was sat there like a criminal. After they interrogated my wife to check out her immigration status, then proceeded to ask me if I had cameras in my house, then proceeded to go through every cabinet, nook, and cranny of my house for a squirrel and a raccoon.
They got a search warrant?
They got a search warrant. 4 departments and a judge signed off on a search warrant for a squirrel and a raccoon. And then they took them and killed them.
Government overreach gone nuts. Now, for some people, this might be even a rather amusing if you're like the two men next to me laughing or trying not to laugh.
No, because it says government overreach gone nuts. It's a squirrel. That was a great joke. You did very well.
You guys are the ones with the dad jokes. I make them mistakenly.
You're a lot funnier than you realise, Liz. Carry on.
For some, this may be a funny story, being like, well, why do people care? The animals are wild animals. Apparently, they weren't supposed to be kept in a house domestically, even though both of them were abandoned, would never have made it in the wild. And that's why Mark Longo had taken them under his wings and made them viral sensations on the interwebs, raising money, which he then used to fund a home for otherwise homeless animals. But this is a story about the government being able to barge into a man's house, treat him like a criminal, strip him of his rights, literally rifle through all his belongings, take his pets for no reason other than to test them for rabies. Can you not test an animal for rabies while it's still alive and then hand it back? No, these guys call themselves the Environmental Conservation Department. They're killing animals, not helping anybody. And I love Elon Musk actually tweeted about this at least 3 times today. Here's a meme that he posted speaking to the issue. Here's Democrats in New York. They're not arresting illegals. They're not arresting rapists. They're not arresting the murderers that we keep hearing about on the streets of New York. No, they're going straight after the squirrels. And all because some Karen, miles and miles away, wasn't even in the same state, had reported this to the department after seeing the happy couple on socials, couldn't bear it, had to report them, and now they're dead. There's a special place in hell for Karens like this.
This story just goes to prove that old Ronald Reagan quote that, the government is not here to help. It used to be the case that governments were there to safeguard your liberty. Now governments exist to get involved in every minutiae of your life and regulate it. And so this guy's got a pet, but it wasn't an authorised pet. And so the government killed it. If Peanut had identified as female, they would have made a statue for Peanut.
Well, maybe if Peanut identified as a dog or a cat, it would have been okay. You can own one of those without a permit. I mean, for heaven's sake, we need justice for Peanut. I mean, Peanut's mother was hit by a car and Mark saw Peanut and took Peanut in and looked after him, as you said, Liz, for 7 years, right?
Yeah.
This is an animal that at that point cannot live in the wild. It is a domesticated animal. If you released it, it would simply go on to die. Someone makes a complaint and they run in and say, oh, we've got to make sure he doesn't have rabies. Well, could they have not just tested Mark and his wife and seen whether they had rabies? I mean, they've been with the bloody animal for 7 years, right? If the squirrel's got rabies, I'd say there's a fair chance they've got rabies as well.
That's a good point.
Who cares? Who cares? It was in his house. This is what will happen. If Kamala Harris is elected president, they'll come and take your animals. They'll kill all of them. They'll say, I've got to take your pet and kill it before I contest it.
This would not have happened under a Trump administration.
Exactly.
Mark my words. Trump would have saved Peanut.
We already know that Donald Trump is the defender of the cats and dogs in Springfield, Ohio, and he will be the defender of the squirrels of New York as well. I want to know, do they not have syringes in the state of New York? I mean,
Clearly not.
Could you not just take some blood from Peanut the squirrel to see whether he had rabies? Why did he have to be killed? Reminds me of that case of Molly the magpie
on the Gold Coast
here in Australia, right?
Yeah.
And she was a rescue as well, and her owners, she became famous on social media again for hanging out with a Staffordshire Terrier dog. I mean, for heaven's sake, if even a Staffy gets along with a magpie, then it must be a pretty extraordinary bird. And someone makes a complaint, and in come the EPA or whoever it was to take the magpie away. Can't we have any joy in this world?
Well, I think you've hit on the key point here. If you've got an animal at home you're keeping as a pet that's not a regular orthodox pet, don't put it on social media, because that's what happened on the Gold Coast. That's what's happened in the US. They've put these animals on social media, which has then invited every anonymous Karen to complain.